Hello, welcome to the Junot Files. Eilidh McGinness. I hope I got that right.
That's perfect. Thanks, Jim. It's lovely to be talking to you.
Now, your book, which came out earlier this year, is called Josephine, Singer. Let me see if I get it right here, the order correct. Josephine, but it's singer, dancer. Uh, give
Soldier.
me the whole title.
Josephine, singer, dancer, soldier, spy.
That's right. Yes, and it is a work of fiction based on fact
That's
about
right.
about the story, the life of Josephine Baker.
Yes.
And I'd like to find out, why did you choose Josephine Baker for this piece of work?
Well, uh, people sort of fascinate me, seemingly ordinary people who achieve extraordinary things. And Josephine Baker was one such person. Um, I first sort of learned about her through my interest in the 1920s. I love the Art Deco, the architecture, the fashion, music. And I learned about her through that, through her being a style icon of the 1920s. It wasn't until I moved to France that I learned that she'd been involved in the French resistance and that she'd lived in a chateau barely more than an hour where I live. So once I had that information, the book had to be written. I find her a sort of fascinating and inspirational character, and for me, it's amazing to live near where she lived and to be able to go visit her chateau and places where she's been.
Now you're Scottish, but you're living in France right now,
Yeah.
right outside of Bordeaux. So now Josephine Baker, she was she's known here in America, but there are so many more people in France who knows her because she is almost a national hero in the country of France, isn't she?
Yes, she is a national hero.
I think she was buried with full military honors when she died.
Yes, she was the only American-born citizen to be so honoured.
Now, Josephine Baker, you start this book with her birth, and was she born in St. Louis?
Yes.
Yes, in St. Louis, Missouri, and she was born. I mean, she battled racism her whole life in America.
Yeah, there's a lot of mysterious circumstances surrounding her background because records indicate that she was born in what at that time would have been a white hospital. And there's rumours circulated all her life that her father must have been white because her mother stayed in hospital for 6 weeks, which was unheard of at that time. But her mother would never reveal who her father was, and it was something that seemed to have troubled Josephine all her life.
Matter of fact, you mentioned in your book that the doctors did not want to keep her mother in the hospital that length of time because it was not a black hospital.
That's right. There wasn't a hospital to cater for blacks in St. Louis at that time. There was one being built, but as I say, it's impossible for me to imagine what that must have been like. It seems extraordinary. Um,
In this day and age, yes, and well, with everything that's going on in America right now, I don't know how much news you get from the states over in France, but it's you have situations going on here in America between the races. So your book is a very timely in this regard.
well, I think she would. The fact that her message is still important today is so sad in many ways. But she fought so hard for equality throughout her life, and I just been looking over some parts of her speech from the 1963 March in Washington. Uh, some of her quotes are really well known today, and she was a real fighter for equality for all.
Well, your book now. Let's take it a little bit at a time here with your book, your work. Um, she now you take her from the time she was born in St. Louis until she is recruited, I guess, for want of a better word. She always loved to sing. She always loved to dance, um, even when she was very young. And then she gets an offer to go to, I believe, New York.
Yes,
And she's not totally certain she wants to go to New York, is she?
I think um, I think she really wanted to work in New York. When she was there, she was quoted as being the best paid chorus girl. Then she got an offer to go to Paris, and she was very nervous about that because she was going to a country where she didn't know anyone. She couldn't speak the language. She was putting her future in the hands of someone else. She really didn't know what she was going to, but she was so frightened of staying in America because of the racism which she had experienced.
But when the lady who recruited her told her that they have freedom in France, that there is no racism, that's what really appealed to Josephine Baker.
That's right.
And I think that really just to me in your book that governed her whole life. I mean, when she was in France and uh, she went to these different places. Um, I remember, I believe you said in your book that she was surprised that the white dancers in New York, backup dancers, were not allowed to touch her because on stage because she was black, and that really affected her.
I think it's terrible to imagine being in that situation. And the reason that she loved France so much was because when she came to France, she was treated equally. She could go into a bar and have a drink because, of course, there was prohibition in America. She could go into a restaurant and eat with white people. She could, and it was, she could see black and white couples sort of kissing in the street.
Hmm.
All these things were impossible in America at that time. So it was an extraordinary experience for her, for the rest of her group who were black, and for many of that was the reason why Paris was such a draw for people from all around the world at that time.
Now, when she was over in Paris, she met with great success. I mean, fantastic success. Um, she popularized the dance called the Charleston. If correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, and she got involved in some movies. Um, but she really preferred stage over the screen, didn't she?
Yes, I think so. She was such a charismatic performer when she was on stage or with an audience. She was able to interact with them in a way that wasn't possible on film.
She liked the interaction. She liked hearing the applause and the enthusiasm.
Yes, and I've been fortunate enough to meet some people who have seen her perform, and they all said that to see her in person was an extraordinary experience because she was so charismatic and so much at ease with people.
Now, in 1939, of course, that's when World War II breaks out, and she is approached to be a spy, which I found surprising, given that she is well known, or so well known rather, and she didn't think that much. I mean, it didn't surprise her. She said, "Well, nobody's going to think I'm a spy, so I'll go ahead and do it."
Yes, she had wanted to be involved in doing something as soon as the war broke out. Um, she volunteered to help at a Red Cross centre. She had a pilot's license, so she was flying supplies for the Red Cross into Belgium. It's the Deuxième Bureau in Paris who deal with intelligence, and the head for their section was Captain Jack Abty, and a manager that had worked with Josephine recommended her to him, but he was horrified initially at the suggestion because there was Josephine's profile was so similar to that of Matty Harry, which had so many bad connotations. So initially they didn't want to touch her. The thought of her as a spy was just impossible. But Captain Jack Abty was persuaded to meet her, and once he'd met her, she convinced him that she was prepared to die for France. And this loyalty was had come because she had found when she moved to France that was the first time in her life that she felt free. It was the first time that she experienced freedom, because in the United States, her whole life had been clouded by fear, and all this had stemmed from the racism to which she was subjected. And with Hitler in power and the interdictions on Jews and Negroes going to Paris, she just couldn't contemplate going back to living in that kind of world. And she was able to convince them that they could put their faith in her. So that's what they did.
I remember reading that she would write the information on her arm, and she would write information on the palm of her hand, which basically horrified her compatriots in the resistance. But she had that much confidence that nobody would think she's a spy, that she felt comfortable doing that. Is that what you found?
Uh, yes, I think it must have been very frightening work because she was risking her life.
Hmm.
But it seemed that she was such a celebrity. She just needed to get in touch with for example, the Spanish embassy, the Italian embassy, and they'd have her around for a party. And at these events, she would take the opportunity to gather information. And because she couldn't have a notebook, she would try and write the notes um, where they wouldn't be seen.
Hmm.
Uh, so that was one of the many ways that she found to smuggle information. But sometimes that she had photographs sort of pinned to her underwear,
Yeah.
notes to her clothes, because she was sure she wouldn't be searched.
I remember reading that. I was like, that's.
Lots
But
of methods.
she was creative. I'll say that she was really. Now, your book deals with her life up until 1946, when war is over and she's able to go back. Well, she's able to return to the stage on full-time basis. Um, did you find anything in her life that surprised you?
I think I think she's full of surprises.
What was the most surprising thing? I'll put it that way.
I think I think I did. It's not so much surprising as inspiring. I find it incredible how she was determined to keep going right till the end. She persevered. She was determined. She didn't ever give up.
Well, let me ask you this: since you stopped the book, well, you stop it basically like around 1946. I mean, you do touch a little bit on Beyond, but are you going to write a sequel to this book?
Yes, I'd like to. Some people that have read it have said, we want to know more.
Hmm.
It's just the reason that I'd chosen that period to write about was because it's a period that she didn't speak about very much herself. Like a lot of war veterans, she didn't talk about that period, and that's why I kind of wanted to focus on that. There's a lot written about afterwards in her period with the Rainbow Children, which were
Yes.
12 adopted children, and her vision of showing the world that all races could live together peacefully and equally. Um, but some of her children have written books about that period, so I didn't feel there was much that I could say, in contrast to them. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
I,
exactly. Oh yeah. And because I watched a documentary on her just last night, talking about I think she adopted 8 children of all races.
it's
That
actually 12 that she took.
well,
12 she formally adopted, and then she had others that were treated as her children.
one of my favorite stories about her, even though it's not in your book, but you do. I think you referred to it at some point where she went back to Paris when she was 68 or 69 years old, and it's right before she passed away. But she was still a great success when
Yeah,
she was I think it was 1975, I believe, 30
that
years after. Hmm?
that's right. She did a celebration performance at the Balbino Theatre in Paris to celebrate 50 years in show business, and it was financed by Princess Grace of Monaco, and she appeared before the likes of Mick Jagger and Shirley Bassey to rave reviews. So that must have been an extraordinary event and extraordinary performances. And her clothes and fashion, the outfits for these shows are absolutely magnificent. And it was after one of these shows, after reading rave reviews of her performances, that she slipped into a coma, and it was a few days after that she sadly died.
That's right. They found her in bed, surrounded by the glowing reviews, from what I understand.
Yeah, but
Let's. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
one of her quotes was that she wanted to dance until the end of her life. So essentially, it's something that she did achieve.
And who could ask for more than that? So I want to switch gears just for a moment and talk about. You have a website, and it is EilidMcGinness.com, EilidMcGinness.com, where you talk about your other writings also. Um, and also you have a blog, which you just updated with Florence Nightingale. And
That's
I'd
right.
like to know how you came upon Florence Nightingale after doing Josephine Baker, writing about Josephine Baker.
She's an inspirational character. So I, I find her really sort of interesting. She achieved extraordinary things. So it's important to remember these people, I think.
Yes, I totally agree, and I urge you to keep doing it. I think it's a wonderful that you're doing that. So, but let me thank you once again, Eilidh McGinness. Did I get that right?
It's Haley, yes,
Ely
yes.
Eilidh McGinness. I'm sorry, I'm American. We butcher names. Okay.
Don't worry.
but But I really appreciate you taking time to do this. And again, the book is Josephine, Singer, Soldier, Dancer, Spy. And you can get it on Amazon, bn.barnesandnoble.com, or you can go into any brick and mortar store and pick it up. Eilidh McGinness, thanks again for being on the Junot Files.
Thank you very much.